Today we're going to spend a little bit of time learning iRacing's replay system, how to navigate within it, and how to leverage it using an official replay from a PCA sim racing event to file an incident race report. So here we are in the iRacing interface. We're actually driving, finishing off a long, hard-fought race. And as the race comes to a conclusion, we are going to exit out of the car. When you get out of the car, the default is to show you the last several seconds of what you were just doing. So here it's actually going back in time, and here I am coming to a full and complete stop. And I'm good. And I can control all of this with my playback buttons down here at the bottom. There is play, pause, etc. And so I'm going to pause this. Along with fast forward and frame by frame, there's also one that goes to the end of the clip. It's 2 arrows and a bar. And when we click on that, that takes us to live. You'll notice it went from replay to live underneath the play pause button. So you will hear a clown car referenced in EDEs. And what that basically means is we're going to click on the name of a user and change the camera to a cockpit view while in live mode to get into their car. And this, of course, references circuses and clown cars, where you have countless clowns getting out of the same car. Clown car is basically everyone piling into the ED instructor's car for a ride around, a track walk. But this is a cool feature that you should all know how to do as part of the replay system. When quitting your session, you will be asked if you really want to quit. You click on yes. And then you'll be presented with a dialog box if you configured it to do so to save your replay. By default, this will be a name that makes sense at the time. In this case, I had an AI race, so it's just a date. Other times it will be a subsession ID for an official race or a practice session in the series. You can always change this and edit it. Once you've actually got the name you want and you remember it, made note of it, so you can find it later, you click on save, and then you can exit out of the interface. Now, if I wanted to access that replay, I can do that. As over here on the left-hand nav of the iRacing UI, I can see replays. And if I click on replays, I'm going to get a list of all the replays. And so I just, that replay that I just did is not actually going to be listed here. I may have to go to my offline replays, and here's the one that I just saved. I can reload this by selecting launch here. I can also delete it if I so choose, but I'm going to launch it because here's what you're basically doing is you're launching a replay. It will load, and once it's completed loading, then we can play it back and do some interesting stuff with it. So we'll show you that. I'm going to fast forward through this load just so you don't have to sit here while it goes through its process. By default, when you start a replay, it'll immediately start playing. If we actually want to suspend that for just a second, we can. We hit the pause button, and it becomes the play button when it's clicked on pause. Now, a couple of cool things that you can do in a replay that are nice to know is one, that you can actually find the laps that were actually run, and you can actually select any specific lap, and it will take you to the beginning of that lap, and that's kind of nice. You can also do that same lap selection down here in the control box window, which is also really kind of nice. Now, the real fun part is that you can fast forward, and you can actually go up to, I think, 16 times if you so chose. You can also go frame by frame if that's something that you needed to do. So maybe you know that there was something interesting that happened shortly after the start of a race. You could fast forward to get it to where it was going. You could even select a specific car, or if you needed to change a camera angle, you could actually change this to far chase to see what was going on here, or maybe rear chase to see what's going on behind. So there are countless options here in terms of selecting the type of camera, including some interesting ones that show you like left front suspension if you wanted to see if there was damage done to your car at any point in the race. Good stuff. You can get a gearbox view looking behind you. You can get a nose view looking ahead of you. So just lots of interesting stuff. Usually people are looking at the TV options to get out of car views, and then maybe rear chase or far rear chase to get perspective on what's going on. So here we can actually see there's there's a little bit of side-by-side action going on here at the beginning of the race, and I can fast forward through this, or I can frame by frame it, and we'll see I got a nice little pass done there. And I can actually go back and say, well, wow, was that a fair pass? Did I touch him there? I can actually come here to and actually play it forward to actually see exactly what happened here. As we come through this section here, I'm on the inside. I've gone his door. And I squeeze him off. So here I might owe this guy an apology if he wasn't an AI driver. I don't apologize to AI drivers, but here we get a nice, 0x contact, but there was contact there where I squeezed down on him a little bit on that inside. Left him room, but not quite enough. But that's a great use of replay. Now this all works really well for my own replays. I tend to save these, and you can actually configure the options for your replays by clicking on options, clicking on replay, and you can enable replay spooling, ask to save replay on quit. I also tend to save all radio channels to replay so that I can replay those later. So if there were any conversations had, that I can actually replay those as well as part of reviewing a particular incident. There are additional settings hidden under the advanced button in the iRacing interface, and one in particular I want to call out is the number of cars being drawn. By default, your performance setting will actually limit this to something that is more in line with your performance of your PC. As a general rule, it's best to draw as many cars as your system will support, and for certain situations, it's really best to draw all cars so that all cars are being tracked in your view and can help you in identifying an incident that may involve multiple cars over multiple laps and report on that as accurately as possible. But these are the important settings to have set, because now anytime you exit in a session, it's going to ask to save that replay, and it's going to capture all the radio chat, and it's going to allow that replay spooling that takes place that I showed, where I'm actually in session and can rewind and play while I'm actually in a session and get back to live. There are a couple of other neat tricks here that I want to show you very quickly. And under options, if you go to miscellaneous, you will find enable video and screen capture. If this is not checked, you can't actually capture screenshots or video from within the iRacing interface. But if you enable this, you have the ability to set a hotkey sequence to do either type of collection. So I have Shift Control Alt S set for my screenshot capture and can do that quite easily when I'm viewing a replay. One of the things that's actually really annoying is if I do a screen capture at this stage, it's going to capture the entire iRacing interface. This may not be optimal. I may be capturing this for a desktop screensaver or a desktop image, and I want it to be as pretty as possible without the UI, and I don't want to crop this out later. The best way to do this is to use the spacebar. Spacebar simply disables the UI temporarily, and spacebar re-enables it when you're ready to view it. One last cool little trick is to use camera edit tools to change the perspective of a particular screenshot that you're looking at. So here I've backed the sequence up a little bit to where the Audi and I make contact. And let's say that this view didn't tell me definitively that there was a touch there and I wanted to see that slightly differently. Any camera view can be modified, and the way that you can do this is by pressing Control F12. This brings up the camera edit sequence, and you've got all sorts of really interesting things here that, like the static field of view, you can actually change the perspective. So I can zoom in on this. I can also rotate the camera. So if I wanted to get a different perspective, I can get in here and actually see how close the cars actually came. I can change the Z-axis and can really get in and actually see what happened here, so that I can actually see that there's no ambiguity that there was car contact in this sequence here. And that's quite useful. Of course, Control F12 turns that camera edit off again, and we're back in business. As part of any racing series, there is an incident race review process. And this is a way for you to report an incident with another driver that you feel should be reviewed officially. And that requires use of an official replay. You can't use your own replays for IRRs. So what's the IRR process? How do you find it? Well, let's say you are planning on participating in Series 7. Under Racing, Series 7, you can click on this in the PCA Sim Racing webpage. And if you scroll all the way down the page, you will find a section around race incidents. Under race incidents, you'll see that if an in-race review and penalty are not possible, post-race review will be provided as an incident race report. So this is your opportunity to make sure that you're fairly treated in an incident if a penalty was not called in race on somebody that hit you, knocked you off track, or caused some sort of an issue. By and large, race control does a tremendous job of applying in-race penalties, and sometimes you won't know that. So if you feel the need after you've actually talked with a driver involved in an incident with you and you feel like it needs further review, the IRR is your friend. And if you click on this, you can find the whole process for how to do this. There is a time limit for submitting an IRR, and they have to be submitted from the official replay or they'll be rejected from viewing. They also have to include the current time of the incident as indicated in the playback. So I'll show you how to load a replay, an official replay, and then go in and find out what that current time is and even cut the specific segment of that replay so that you can review it or look at it, refer to it again later. One last thing to mention about IRRs is the form for submitting an IRR is here. And if you click on this, you'll see that you have to confirm that you've talked to the other driver involved in the incident about the incident ahead of filing the IRR, and specify the racing series event that you're submitting the IRR for and who you are, including your PCA member number and your iRacing account number, your sim racing racing class, your car number, and an email address should the officials need to reach out to you, who the other driver in the incident was, what the other car number was, and then that very important time of incident from the official replay. And then a 50-word description of what happened, and then you submit that. So you don't have to include an attachment in this case, but it is the current time is incredibly important for the officials to be able to find the incident in the official replay as described in the incident race report form. Since Series 7 is not yet underway, there are no replay files for that series yet. So let's take another example. Let's say we were involved in the team racing series, and in the race at Spa, we knew that there was an incident. So for every event in the series, you'll see the overall results, the different group results, so the classes essentially for the team races. So breaking all that down. But then down below, you'll actually see a link to replay and a link to broadcast. So if we scroll down here, we'll find the Spa race, and there's the replay. If I click on this link, it is going to download a zip file. And this is quite a large file. Replay files can be multiple gigs in size, and so this was an hour-and-a-half event, so it's going to take a couple of seconds for this to download. But once it's fully downloaded, I'll have a zip file on my machine that I can then drop into the right place. So we'll fast forward this, and then we'll jump right into where to put it. Now that the file has been downloaded, it'll be dropped in the default downloads folder for your browser that you use to download it. You can, of course, go here, show in folder, and here I actually can see that I've got the zip file here. If I right-click on a zip file and extract all, and it's going to ask me how I want to expand this. I'm going to keep it in the downloads folder for now because I want to see what's actually in the folder. It's going to take a couple of seconds to extract this. Again, this was a 2.2 gig file that was zipped, so it's compressed, so it's bigger than that 2.2 gig. And it's going to open up and show me that I got a replay file here that's 3.6 gigs in size. So what we need to do with this now is we actually need to find where our iRacing default folder is. By default, our iRacing default folder is going to be in our Documents, iRacing, And in this folder here, you'll find a replay folder. This is where all the replays are stored for your system. Now, I've got a lot of replays because I store every replay. So 2 things that you're going to want to do in looking at this replay so you don't lose it if you do have a lot of replays like me. If you don't have a lot of replays like me, this isn't an issue, but you'll need to make note of what the name of this is. So we know it's TRS SPA Event 4, and we also can see the date modified 9/7. I believe that that should be how it's stored in the system, but it might not be. It might be the date that it was actually created, which if we look back on our website, we know that the SPA race happened on July 21st. So we've got some clues to find this later if we need them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I've got this replay folder open, and I am just going to grab this and drop it into this folder. So now it's actually in this folder. Once that is done, I can come into my iRacing client again and refresh my screen, and I should be able to find that replay. When you're looking at your replay screen, you have a scan system for new replays button. We're just going to click on that and make sure that it actually looks in that folder again and finds the replay. And I'm just going to make this easier to find by selecting just races. And here it is at the very bottom. Ryan Bauer actually recorded this. July 21st is the date on it, and TRS SPA Event 4. So I can click on that and launch that, and it's going to launch this replay on my system. So here we are in the replay. And as I said earlier, you can find your way around quite easily within the replay under the laps heading down here in the lower left-hand corner. If I click this, by default, it's going to load me into the practice session for the session. And I selected my team, WWZ Red, to just sort of showcase that car as the highlight of what's being looked at. By default, it will always be the person who recorded the replay, which was Ryan Bauer, but he wasn't actually in the race, I don't believe. I think he is one of our announcers. Yeah, so he has got no laps at all associated with him. So I want to select my car or a car that I wanted to target for the replay to kind of take an examination look here. I'm going to click on WWZ Red, and here I can actually see that we're in practice mode. We want to get to race time, so we can go into race, and let's say I wanted to look at the incident that occurred on lap 2. I can double click on lap 2, and it's going to take me to the start of that lap. So now I can actually turn that off, and I can click play. Now, I have the option here of fast forwarding to actually find the incident that I'm looking for.
Good, Robert.
And I know it's coming up here, so I can slow down a little bit. And in here, I can actually see that it's coming in here, and it's a single car incident. It's not 2 cars, which is nice. We're not singling anybody out here. But we see he gets back up to speed and gets engulfed with the rest of the field coming up, catching up with him, and deals with the issue. So this is nice. I can look at this from multiple angles and actually see what was going on, including doing the cockpit view and actually see what was being seen by the driver at the time as he kind of goes off and misses a brake point and has a little bit of a ride there. Gets it under control and no worse for wear. All good stuff. And I can change that view to any of the views that I showed earlier, which is nice, including a chopper view, which is kind of fun. So now, what do I want to do here? Well, let's say I want to get back to the start of this incident. So back before he goes off the edge there. So I'm here, and I want to see at the time of the incident. So if I click on the little wrench and hammer icon, I can see current time race 0511. That's that all-important current time marker that you need to record in your IRR filing, and just keep a good count there. Now let's say hypothetically I wanted to capture this event. So the way that you set the marker to the starting position is you click the little scissors icon. That's going to click my marker here. And so now I can actually let it run forward, spin, well, not quite a spin, he saved it, and back underway, leaves room, nice exit, nice safe recovery. Great job. I can pause that now. Now I can click the little save icon. So what this is going to do is it's going to give me the opportunity to save this little segment from where I clicked on the scissors to where I clicked on save as its own segment. And I can give it a special name. So I can just name this something clever, like Rob's Save. And now it's going to save this in my replay directory. That's great. So now I have the full replay, and I had the segment that I was interested in reviewing, so I can refer back to it later. But the all-important thing is the current time was discovered there. And we can actually, if let's say we didn't want to save that particular segment and we actually wanted to reset that, or we were starting over again, we can click this little reset button, and it reopens the whole replay again to where I can actually find a new start point. Now, the camera does not matter in this context because the replay file captures all of the information. So you do not need to record this several different times for the different camera viewpoints. It's capturing all the data necessary for all the cameras that are available, so you don't need to do that. But you could do a different set time, or if you needed to reset that because you started it in the wrong place, you wanted to get a little closer, you can reset, move it a little closer. Let's actually just show that that actually works real quickly. We'll exit out of this replay and we will load the shortened segment that we just created. So back on our replays page here, we still see TRS Spa event. If I go up one page here, we'll find a new Rob's Save, and I can launch that. And this will be a much smaller file. The reason why I want to show you how to create the smaller file is that as I said, the replay file, the official one, was 2.2 gigs. You may not have enough space to keep an infinite number of replay files, or to keep the official race replay on your machine for all time. But you may want to keep specific incidents and just file those away. That's a way you can actually shorten the amount of requirements for storage by shortening the segment and making that something you can save for all time. You can save it in the cloud or do whatever you need with it, but it takes a lot less space on your local hard drive, and that's much more manageable over time. So again, by default, it's dropped us back into Ryan Bauer's view because that's who recorded the replay, but that's not who we want to see. We want to go back to WWZ, and here we are at the beginning of our replay. We are fully back as far as we can go. I made sure of that. We're on lap 2, and we're paused. If I hit play, we have our little incident. Got it collected, and leaving space on the exit here. So we're all good to go, and that's our segment. So it's only going to go here for as long as I allowed it to. So there you go. That's the end of the segment that we recorded. So that's a much shorter piece, and I can save this for all time. If we actually look on disk real quickly, we can actually tell that this is 6 megs versus 3.6 gig, which is a much more manageable file size to save for all time, or to store in cloud storage, or whatever. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to keep the full official replay for all time. You can just keep the segments that you want to save off that are related to incidents or cool things that happen. It doesn't have to be necessarily a negative thing. It can be a really wicked cool pass, or a nice lineup of cars that you want to capture a screenshot from later. The replays can be a valuable resource for a lot of different things and a lot of different purposes. While we're in here talking about race results and incidents occurring, a lot of times something will happen on track and I will remember that it happened, but I won't remember exactly when it happened. If you're in a team event, that's usually someplace where you can rely on your driving partner to help you remember or jot down notes of incidents that happened that you want to revisit later. But let's say you're driving by yourself and you don't have the benefit of that, and you remember vaguely where it may have happened, but you don't remember the details. There's a neat trick that you can use to find that incident, even after a lot of time has passed. So if you go into the overall race results in iRacing that are always available for these events, if we click on this, it's going to open up the results page for this event. So to find a particular event, all you need to do is to scroll down, find your car in the list here, and if you know which driver was behind the wheel at the time, you can click on the laps button. And what it's going to do is it's going to articulate everything that happened here So if you had an off-track moment, which is what we actually just saw on lap 2, or there's car contact, or there are other sorts of things that happen, all of that will be recorded in the comment section here, and it's sort of an annotated lap-by-lap account of your race that can be referred to later. And so this is very useful in terms of finding an incident that occurred on track, and then in the replay file you would go to that lap and you maybe have to scrub through that entire lap to find the incident, but it makes it a little bit easier than finding that needle in the haystack or watching the entire replay to find that one event that you wanted to report on. Well, I hope you found this video useful, and if you have, please consider clicking on like. And if you want to be notified of new videos when they're released, please click on subscribe. Thank you very much.